Andelina Storm Grossi is a writer and psychology student at Michigan State University. She is a podcaster. Her debut book is Sanity in the Storm, Faith, Healing, and Hope for the Anxious Soul. Welcome to the show, Andelina.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us a little bit about your personal lives, more about what it is you do, and what motivated you to write the book.
Yes, so growing up, I've always really struggled with OCD and anxiety. I lost my grandpa at a really young age. I watched him pass away in hospice, and that was kind of when things really ignited for me in the mental health world because I was having these feelings I didn't really know how to navigate. I didn't really know what they meant. And then as I got older, my anxiety kind of developed into depression when I got into college. And that was something I didn't really know how to navigate because when you're anxious, you kind of just feel like you're walking around with a weighted vest. But then depression, it was like you felt really alone, and that felt really loud and scary. And around the same time I developed depression, one of my guy friends from high school ended up dying by suicide. And to me, that really opened my eyes to the fact that mental illness is a really big struggle we have, especially right now in the world. And I wanted to make sure no one thought that was the only option and that there can be a comma in their story instead of a period. So that led me to sit down and start writing my book because I realized if I have these feelings that can be relatable for someone, but I find a way to get through them, then it's really important for me to share that with the world and make sure everyone knows they're not alone and they can get through whatever they're feeling.
Well, I'm sorry about the experience with your grandfather.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And certainly with your friend and everything that you've been through as well. Were have you always enjoyed writing? How did it's an ambitious thing to write a book. So what was sort of how did that click?
Yeah, so actually when I was 9, I went to therapy for the first time and she would have me write down how I was feeling. She'd have me journal, which I recommend to everyone. Journaling is so therapeutic. But she would have me kind of start journaling and write things down and it looked pretty intense for a 9-year-old. I had really bad OCD, thinking that if I did certain things, people were gonna die. So I'd write in my journal and it'd be like, my mom said I could sleep in bed with her tonight, so now no one will die. And that's kind of what my journal entries used to look like. But after that, I kind of had this obsession with writing in a journal. So I used to write Dear Diary a lot as a kid, and I was totally a diary kid. It was Dear Diary this and that. And as I got older, it kind of turned to Dear God, and it turned to more prayer. But I always really liked writing and I loved reading. So I would read all these books and I was like, I could do this. The way these people are writing, I was like, I feel like I've read so many books that I know how to write one now, which is funny just because I had that exposure therapy to what a good book sounded like and felt like because I was reading all the time. And I always really wanted to write a book, but I was kind of scared of the fact that you don't really know whether or not it would do good. And I was scared of being judged by my peers and the people around me because if no one thought it was good, that kind of seemed like that'd be the end of the world for me at the moment. But as I got older, my dad started pushing me to write. I was going to be a dentist. I was a pre-dental student at Michigan State. And he was like, Lena, I think you've always enjoyed writing and it's something you've always been good at. I think you should sit down and write a book. And then I did. And once I got over the fear of being judged and people not liking it, I fell in love with the process of it. I thought it was extremely therapeutic. And so many people have reached out to me and told me that it helped them. So it did its job. And now I plan on writing many more books.
Well, that's awesome. It's not a easier automatic thing to get over the fear of being
Right.
judged.
Right.
Like, how did you do that?
So honestly, it was a lot of just making myself do it anyways. It was exposure therapy in a way. It was well, you just have to do it and you have to kind of deal with the fact that people aren't going to like you and realizing that no matter who you are, no matter what you do, you could be the nicest person in the entire world. Someone's going to find a reason not to like you and someone's going to find a reason to judge you. That's just the sadness of the world we kind of live in, that people are going to dislike you because you're too nice, but people are going to dislike you if you're not nice enough. So that was kind of the realization I had to come to, where it's people aren't going to like me whether or not I write this book. So I might as well just sit down and write it anyways and hope that people are supportive. It was really helpful to have so such good community in my life encouraging me to do so, but also it was a lot of just realizing that no matter what I do in life, people are going to find a problem with it. So I might as well do what I feel called to do.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, did you write it for yourself? Did you write it for yourself, hoping that it would help other people? How did you sort of think about that?
So I wanted it to be targeted towards everyone else. I wanted it to be the reason that everyone knew there was another option. It's centered around finding faith in the storms you go through in life and also a lot of psychological coping mechanisms that are proven to work 'cause I'm a psych student. So it was originally targeted towards other people. Like I really had the heart that I didn't want people to make the same decision my friend made, and I wanted to be one of the reasons they knew that their life could go on, their story could continue. But also throughout the process, I realized that it was extremely healing for myself as well. And it ended up being like a Swiss Army knife. It was helping me, it was helping other people, and it just had multiple different like avenues that ended up going down.
Tell me about life's storms.
So I think your storms can be like anything. I think there's a lot of mental storms, which is obviously something I talk about a lot because I've struggled a lot mentally. But there's also physical storms. So, getting a diagnosis you're not necessarily expecting to and not something you want, losing someone, like going through that grief. Going, honestly, even I've noticed that like student athletes, when you graduate from high school, you don't get to play sports anymore. Like that's like almost an identity crisis. So I feel like there's a lot of different avenues, and storms are honestly different for everyone. And whatever your storm is, there's such simple ways to just daily beat the storm. Like sometimes just getting out of bed in the morning is like beating a storm.
Well, I think that that's 100% true because I could perceive a storm to be one thing and somebody else could perceive it to be nothing or the worst storm they'd ever experienced. So, how do you think about that?
So I think perspective is extremely important because, again, like you were saying, like something that's a huge deal to me, you could think is like the littlest thing ever, and that, like, why is that significant? And like vice versa. So I think it's very important to understand that you are not going to have the same mindset as someone sitting next to you. You can have brothers and sisters that grew up, were raised by the same parents in the same environment, and you all view storms very differently. Like me and my siblings. We have very different problems and we have very different things that wear us down. Like things that really upset me, my brother would like laugh off and be like, "Wait, why does that bother you?" So it's really important to like come to each other with like empathy and sympathy, like knowing that whatever they're going through, if they're saying it's a big deal, it is a big deal to them. It may not be a big deal to you, but that does not make it any less valid that they feel the way they do. I'm a big believer on everyone's emotions are valid, and whether or not you think someone is acting rationally or not isn't up for you to decide because you don't know what that sounds like in their head.
Well, that's certainly very, very, very logical advice, not always easy to follow.
Yes, no, 100%. If it was easy to follow, more people would probably do it.
Hmm, That's that is definitely fair. So, being empathetic and kind to others, is that something that you've always done for yourself, or did you need to become more empathetic or kind to yourself?
So I feel like you give better advice to people than you take, or you're nicer to other people than you are to yourself. And that's always really stood true for me. Took me a really, really long time to not beat myself up for the areas in my life where I felt like I was falling short. Especially in high school, I would look at my friends and tell them that it's okay that they're feeling the way they were and that they could take a break. But I would never take that advice myself. I was always like beating myself up, like feeling bad about the fact that I was in my head so much and like letting it genuinely control my life. But it wasn't until I got to college and I started giving myself grace that I actually started doing better and performing better because I knew that I wasn't holding myself to such unrealistic standards anymore.
And did you find that standards that you're holding yourself to, these were just what you thought others expected of you, or were they actual standards that somebody had told you that to hold yourself to? Some combination.
Yes, I feel like growing up, it was always like, you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't be vulnerable. Like, people were scared of vulnerability a lot, especially with like boys, and I had an older brother. So I would always hear my like dad or like people in my life like telling my brother, like no crying in baseball, like, you're good, like, you're a man, like, be strong. And even though like I wasn't a boy, like hearing my brother go through that or like hearing the people around me say that like guys shouldn't cry, it's like, oh well, like I can be strong too. Like I won't cry then. Like, oh, I can be strong, like I won't be vulnerable. And I feel like even when it's only targeted towards boys, like that's still a really bad mindset for everyone. First off, boy or girl, like you should, vulnerability is strength. And the minute you are able to express your emotions, you're going to feel better and you're going to like be better. You can't just like hold it up and bury it inside. And I think that's a big reason why the like boys have such a higher rate of suicide than girls, and it's because they're held to like such unrealistic standards and expectations. But for me, I wasn't like necessarily like told by like my family and friends I couldn't feel certain ways, but like coaches in high school, I was an athlete growing up. I played volleyball and basketball. And both of my coaches would always, they were like men coaching a bunch of girls. And they would put these like really high, like unrealistic standards on us that like there was no days off, like we couldn't miss practice. Like if we were injured, we were supposed to like play through those injuries. So I always felt like it was something I had to like bury and just kind of move on from because I was expected to always have energy and I was expected to always be 100%.
And you weren't because you're a human being.
Right, exactly.
No days off. Suck it up,
No.
Andelina. Get back out there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, there was like one season of basketball, I had 12 stress fractures in my foot, and my basketball coach was like, "Okay, cool, like districts is next week, so I expect you to show up and play." And I
Yeah,
was like,
good
"All
luck with those
right,
stress factors.
right."
Uh, vulnerability is strength. I think it's 100% true. I think that without vulnerability, I wouldn't be nearly as effective as I am in my professional life and certainly my personal life as well. And being a guy who's 47 years old, I certainly appreciate that. There's a lot of people who are saying, "Suck it up, don't share your emotions, don't act like a baby, whatever." But I also feel like there are more voices out there who are saying it's okay to raise your hand and say that you need help. How do you feel like we're doing sort of culturally? Is it getting better, worse, staying the same?
I think we're getting better. And I think it's like so amazing to look at the fact that we are getting better because it's so disheartening looking at like the past generations and knowing that those men were genuinely raised to be like brick walls and to not have emotions. And even with like their wife and kids when they got home, like they weren't supposed to ever show emotion or cry or anything. So I really do like the position we're going. I think more people are speaking out about mental health, and I think more people are telling people to be vulnerable, to like feel better, to like have those like good like relationships because if you don't have vulnerability in relationships, you only have like a surface level relationship with people you genuinely care about. Like I can't even imagine all like the marriages like right after like the Vietnam War where those like men were like instilled to just like be strong, don't cry, don't talk about anything. It's like how did you have like real relationships with people because you were just taught to like be shut off all the time.
And even today, we're seeing countless people who served coming back and taking their own lives. And
Mm,
probably a big part of that is exactly what we're talking about, which is a terrible thing, obviously.
yes, 100%.
What role has faith played for you in all of this?
So for me personally, my story, faith has been the thing that's grounded me since I was a kid. I was 9 years old, had OCD and anxiety, like I mentioned before, and if I didn't have like God to like look up to and be like pray, I genuinely don't know where I would be or if I would have been able to get through it because having hope in something bigger than myself, having the hope that there was something after this, that like all the pain one day would just be gone. I wouldn't have been able to get through it myself, and without my relationship with God, I wouldn't have been able to write the book because there were so many nights where I was just sobbing hysterically, like praying to Him, being like, "What do I write? What do I do? If I'm feeling like this, like how can I even help someone else?" And I got all my answers through Him and through faith. And my journey, the fact that I'm still standing, the fact that I didn't take my life the nights I thought I was going to me is just such a good testament that God is there, and I genuinely don't think I would be here without him.
So you're having one of those difficult evenings, and Are you just thinking? Are you actively engaged in prayer and asking for support, counsel?
Yeah, so for me, I've never had like a plan in place. It's always been a lot of like suicidal ideation where you have all the feelings, but you don't necessarily like think you'll execute them. So for me, it's been like sometimes it was just me praying to God and God giving me the peace I need to get through the moment. And in other ways, it was God having community show up for me. My best friend's my roommate. And I think she's the biggest blessing I've ever gotten from God because when I do feel like that, I can go to her and be like, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't be by myself. And she shows up for me every time. Like, sometimes she'll pray with me. Sometimes she'll like give me a verse to meditate on, or just her being there to me is like such a good testament in who God is.
Is that always something that you've known that God may sometimes give you things maybe just to the form of thinking, and sometimes God will give you people that will show up, additional resources, um, but you're wise enough to recognize this is God answering my request.
I would be lying if like I sat here and said I've like never doubted God. A year ago when I was in like the worst state where I like genuinely was thinking all the time that I would just be better off if I wasn't here anymore was like when I just couldn't hear God. And most of my life I've always heard him. Like when I was little, like I heard him and he was there and I could get through things. And for most of my journey, I could like hear him and that would make me feel better. But when my faith really grew was in that moment, like that time of silence where I did have to just rely on the fact that even if I couldn't hear him or feel him or he wasn't giving me the friend in my face to fix things or making me feel like he was close to me through prayer, like that was when I realized like how real he really is. And I thought he placed me in that season to help me understand people that don't know God or don't understand God so I can learn ways to help them as well. So there was definitely times when I like didn't really know what God was doing or why things were feeling the way they were. I like wished there was always like prayer or a verse or like a friend that like maybe be like, oh, like God's like great. But I think the season of silence was extremely important because it helped me understand that like not everyone gets to hear God all the time, and those people also need help and like need to learn ways to get through things.
And writing the book, did you know what you wanted the book to be like the structure of it, the outline of it, or did it sort of morph and evolve as you're writing?
So I pretty much like knew a bit about what I wanted to be about. I've had five struggles, like main struggles that I've gone through that more things just kind of like branched off of. And it's like anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, and grief. So I had five big key concepts I wanted to get down, and I always have loved writing in a very like poetic sense. Like I really like making the reader feel what I'm feeling to like show them that I am a reliable source. It's like I've also struggled. So I like because I don't really like when people like look and they're like, "Oh, you don't know what I've gone through." And it's like exactly like I don't know what you've gone through, but here's what I've gone through. So hopefully you relate at least a little bit so you know that these could work for you. So each chapter, there's 15 chapters. They started off with a very vulnerable testimony from me, like writing something I felt, and then it turned into tying it into faith. So there's like a verse or like a passage tying it to faith and like showing people how like I got through it that way. And then also I understand not everyone knows God, so there's a lot of psychological coping mechanisms that then follow that. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to give people a guide. I wanted to be the perfect toolkit where if this doesn't work for you, here's something else that might work. And if that doesn't work for you, here's something else that might work. So I wanted it to be as informational as possible while still being a pretty easy read. And it did evolve over time. It like ended up getting way more like research based later on, but the principles were like there from the very beginning.
Got it. I appreciate that. And you enjoyed it well enough to want to write more.
Yes, I did. I loved the journey of it all, and I love hearing people's testimonies. I like love when people reach out to me and say like this really helped. Here's what I'm going through because all I want to do is help people. So if I have to write a million books to help a million people, I guess that's what we have to do.
Guess that's just what you're going to have to do.
Right.
Well, I love it. Well, Andelina, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they find the podcast? And where can they get their copy of, see if I can read my handwriting, Sanity in the Storm?
Yes. So my social media is Andelina.storm. So it's Andelina dot storm. And my podcast is on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. It's Peace in the Storm podcast with Andelina Storm. And my book is on Amazon. So Sanity in the if you just look up Sanity in the Storm, it pops right up. It's like a little water background with yellow writing. So
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed as much as I did, show Angelina your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. You can find her podcast, Peace in the Storm, on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And find her on social media, Andelina.storm, and then pick up your copy of Sanity in the Storm on Amazon. We'll link all of those in the notes. Thanks again, Andelina.
yeah, thank you.
Finally, till next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.